50% of workers are back in the office. That's according to the latest data from Tracker Castle Systems. The data measures weekly average office occupancy rates from the top 10 cities, with half of workers back in the office. Will the other half soon follow? Joining us now is Yahoo Finance contributor Mandi Woodruff-Santos. Mandi, nice to see you. Not everyone wants to go back to the office. Who's still home? And what cases are workers making to stay remote?
Yeah, like you mentioned, the majority of workers are actually back to office. But I think the reason we haven't seen widespread rioting about this is because the majority of workers are actually on a hybrid work schedule, which I think suits everyone. And I think we're going to see many more companies make a transition into the hybrid work schedule. For those who are 100% remote, the lucky few of us still left, I believe these are people who got exemptions permanently to work from home. Maybe they moved states during the pandemic, or they may have a physical or mental health reason for being required to work from home, or they just may have a flexible management team who's giving people really the option to choose whether to come into the office or stay home.
Indeed, very envious of your remote status, my friend. If your job is asking you to come back, what can you do to fight for your case?
Well, the first thing is, they can legally force you to come back into the office. That's just the beauty of employment law in this country. But however, if you're someone whose lifestyle has changed, if you have moved, or if you have other concerns, for example, I've got a good friend who works at Disney who just gave birth to a new baby boy and is not interested in traveling 2 hours each way from her new home in Connecticut. So like her, I would suggest, really state your case, go one-to-one with your manager. What I'm finding is that even though companies have company-wide policies for hybrid or remote working or return to office, managers and different department heads are really approaching these case by case. So you may be able to make a personal appeal to your manager for an exemption. Now, I would get everything in writing because management can change. Anything can happen. Your manager may leave, and you want to have documentation that you were granted this exception. All right. Also bring any, if you have a doctor's note, for example, if you have a note from your mental health provider, or a note about any, for example, people who are still immunocompromised still may not feel comfortable going back. I'm immunocompromised as a mom to be again, and I'm not excited to get on the subway in New York City because even though the pandemic is, on its way out, it's still very much there along with other viruses, right? So bring your documentation, go to your manager. Ultimately, though, stay flexible.
Yeah, there's nothing like getting on that packed subway car and people are coughing. So we brought up that number, 50% are back in the office, according to Castle. Do you think that will keep rising, or have we reached some sort of equilibrium? Are we going to see flattening out ahead?
I think through the end of 2023, I think we're going to continue to see that rise and then probably see some flattening out in 2024. I think you've seen a lot of big companies announce return to work policies, and smaller companies are now going to be following suit, sort of putting some changes in place. If you're concerned about it, I would avoid making any huge life changes right now. If you can avoid moving states, if it could potentially jeopardize your job, talk to your manager and make sure that there's transparency and clarity. Are you guys planning or discussing any possibility in changing my remote work status? Because, I've got to make some life choices here. But if you are someone who is continuing to work remote, I would get that reiterated again in writing by your manager that it's allowed and for how long you're able to be allowed to work from home. It's all about that paper trail, right?
Yeah, many promises are made, Mandi. Get it in writing. Anecdotally, Friday seems like nobody goes to work, but I go to the train station, there's no cars there. Is that nationally become the fully remote day?
Absolutely. I'm with you. I dropped my husband off on Friday so he can go to work. Unfortunately, he's got to be in 5 days a week, and it feels like he's the only one. It's a ghost town. Yes, and I think also what we're seeing is a choice. Companies saying you can be in the office 3 days a week. We're not going to dictate which days. And I think it's natural. People want a little bit of a relaxing Friday, which I don't think anyone should begrudge them. I mean, to be fair, remote work has no impact on worker productivity by and large, research has shown. So I think companies should stay as flexible as possible with their workers. I would caution workers or just encourage them, though, even if you are required to return to office a few days, go into the office, even if you do remote work, at least once a quarter to have some FaceTime, connect with colleagues. You may even, dare I say, enjoy it, because socialization is just a part of our, human nature, especially when we're at work. So I don't think it's all bad news for workers, as long as companies continue to be as flexible as they have shown to be so far.
Very excellent points from Mandi Woodruff-Santos. Thanks so much. Appreciate that.